Some time ago, a friend who is a pastry chef and can be found on social media under the brand name Tidorty asked me for help. You can see from both her Facebook and her Instagram that she's all about cakes and desserts. Her request for help was also related to this. As you can see, this cake features a cake topper created with 3D printing technology. And it's not the only 3D printed cake topper you can see in these photos. But they all have one thing in common. They were all printed by me, and today I'm going to show you how I created them. Probably the most important thing about creating anything is to get any kind of visual reference or specification. Also, if the graphics don't ring a bell, you have no choice but to get the design from the client or use the magical power called Google. So let's just say I didn't get any input on the cake topper. So I can try searching for a specific cake topper with an STL extension. With that, I should be able to find a cake topper ready for 3D printing. If I didn't find what I needed, I can try to find just a visual of the image I would like to use for the cake topper. It really does make your life a lot easier if you search for images rather than photos, and preferably in two colors. If I have found what I am looking for, I just need to download the image I want. If you want to make your life easier, try to find the image in one of the vector formats. These include AI, APS, SVG, and similar. For example, you can use the open source vector program Inkscape to edit them. These images are not just any images. These are in fact data files that contain information about shapes and their positions on the canvas inside the image. Their great advantage is the possibility of unlimited enlargement and reduction of shapes in the image. As you can see, I downloaded these images in exactly the formats I need. But let's show the worst case scenario, and that is that we only have a plain image. In this situation, we will use the open source image editor Gimp. Since I know next to nothing in it, I will just focus on converting the image to vectors. Gimp does a cool thing, and that is that it can create a path from a selection. So, if I draw any selection shape, I can then save it as a path. I will show you why this is important in a moment. Remember how I told you to only get the image in two colors? That's because Gimp can use a magic wand or directly help you select a similar color to create a selection. For my image, there is no difference between the selected tool. I can try smoothing the edges and blending them as needed. For an image with multiple colors, I can use the magic wand and use the Shift key to mark multiple objects. It all depends on your image. For my image, I can click on the white background and then let the selection reverse. This will select everything except the white background. Now that we have everything selected, we save that selection as a path. Then we can unselect and possibly hide the image itself. And finally, we can look at the path we have created. Now we are going to export this path to SVG format. This puts us in the same state as if we had downloaded an image already saved in the vector format. And that actually brings us back to Inkscape. In this program we can edit the vector image a little bit more. I recommend you to display the panel with layers and their groups. If there is one group on the page that contains other objects, I recommend that you ungroup that group. This will give us a better ability to manipulate objects on the canvas. If there is also a background on the image, I recommend deleting it as well. If our image is made up of only a selection, we need to split this selection into multiple separated paths. Since I'm only going to use the right side of this image, I can delete the objects on the left side. Since this is a cake topper, the object needs to be close together and, if possible, without gaps. That's why I'm going to move this ball to the football player's foot. Now, the only part I'm missing is the part that gets into the cake. I can draw that in this program or in the next step. In this video, I'm going to show both ways. Since this is a vector editor, I can zoom in and out as needed. This gives me room to create the part that gets into the cake. To make things easier, we can group the remaining objects into one. If we now lock the aspect ratio, we can shrink the image as needed. Probably the easiest way to draw the tip is with a plain rectangle. Unfortunately, I can't tell you how wide to make it. It all depends on the size of your model and its eventual thickness. Now we can convert the rectangle we drew into a path. Then we can click on the bottom right corner and add a rounding option to it. Finally, we can fine-tune the shape of the tip according to our requirements. If we now group everything together, we can set the final size of the topper. If we are happy with the result, we can save a copy of the image in the DXF format. Unfortunately, this is probably the only format we are able to load into OnShape for our needs. If we get an error message during the export, it probably means that the image will have incorrect dimensions. There is a simple solution to this. Just draw a rectangle around the model without any infill. Set its edges as accurately as you want to be able to define the dimensions of the final model. The fact that the rectangle interferes with the image doesn't have to bother us at all. It is an object on a different layer and does not interfere with our image. If we are happy with the image, we can try saving a copy of it again in the DXF format. This time we can ignore the errors. After saving, we move to OnShape. If you don't have an OnShape account and are a DIYer, you can create one for free. Probably the biggest limitation for you is that all your projects will be public and you will not be able to use the program for commercial purposes. I would also like to add here that I don't charge anything for my friends' cake toppers. Create a new blank document in OnShape. On the front side of the space, create a new sketch. In the menu, choose the option to upload the DXF file and upload the file we prepared. Once it's uploaded, we click on it and it's instantly added to our sketch. If you have added the rectangle for dimensions correction in the image file, click on it and set its dimensions. Then select the whole thing and change it to a construction. The construction is for drawing purposes only. It cannot be made into a part. If you don't want to change anything on the model, we can pull it out to a thickness of 2 or 3 mm. A greater thickness for a cake topper is probably not even necessary. If you didn't add the tip of the topper to the picture before, don't panic. I will show you how you can add it using two different methods in OnShape. The first method is by editing the original sketch. In order not to change the dimensions of the previous sketch, I recommend to fix the whole sketch. Then choose a rectangle in the tools and draw that into your model. Adjust its dimensions if necessary. The tip of the topper can also be drawn in this step using a regular line. You can now extrude the final shape to a thickness of 2 or 3 mm. If you didn't draw the tip of the notch in the previous step, you can now make it using a chamber. The second method of drawing the missing tip is by using the new sketch on the top of the part. Then choose the rectangle in the tools again and actually draw the tip in exactly the same way as in the previous method. Then extrude the sketch to the same thickness as the rest of the indentation and attach it to the rest of the topper. That's pretty much it. As you can see, it wasn't that complicated. Finally, just click on the part you created and download it in STL format. Now just print this file like any other.